I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but here I am. My marriage with Lisa started off pretty solid. We'd been together for about 8 years, no real drama, just the usual ups and downs. We had our issues, money worries, a few disagreements here and there. But overall, I thought we were in a good place. Then out of nowhere, we hit a rough patch last year. She started acting distant, snapping at me over small things, and she kept canceling plans. I figured maybe she was stressed at work or just overwhelmed, so I didn't push too hard. I tried to give her space, but the silence felt heavy, like she was hiding something. Things got worse when she signed us up for this couple's retreat. It was supposed to help us reconnect, really focus on fixing what was broken. I was skeptical at first. Something about the whole thing felt kind of cheesy, but I went along because I love her and thought maybe this could help us. The retreat was held at this fancy lodge up in the mountains, and the whole program was designed around workshops, reflection sessions, and couple activities. It was intense, but I genuinely wanted to save what we had. The first couple of days went okay. We did the exercises, played the games, talked about our feelings, nothing extraordinary, but I was hopeful. Then came the individual reflection time, which was supposed to be a quiet, personal space for us to think about our relationship and what we really wanted. That's when things started to feel off. Lisa, she'd get this weird attitude, like she was hiding something. She'd rush to the bathroom or go for a walk, but she also seemed more tense than usual, like she was trying to hide her nerves. Honestly, I didn't think much of it at first. I just thought maybe she was uncomfortable or overthinking everything. It wasn't until later that I actually found out something was really wrong. One of the other attendees, a guy named Mark, he was a photographer and kind of nosy in a good way. He kept joking about how he'd seen Lisa sneaking off with someone during their reflection time. I didn't think much of it at the time, probably just some innocent conversation, right? But then, a few days after the retreat, I saw a post on Facebook. From Mark, it had photos of Lisa and this guy Tom in what looked like a hotel lobby, holding hands, smiling. The caption was something like, "You never know what's happening behind closed doors." I stared at the pictures for a long time, my stomach twisting. It felt like I'd been punched in the gut. That's when I knew the truth. My wife had been cheating on me during the retreat with the guy who was supposed to be there to help us heal. I couldn't believe it. I kept going over every sign, every odd look, every time she snapped at me or lied about where she was. I felt betrayed, furious, and just plain devastated. How could she do this? We were supposed to be working on us, and she's out there cheating during a supposed couples healing event. It was like the universe was mocking me. The worst part is, I didn't know how long it had been going on or how deep the deception went. All I could think about was how I'd trusted her, and she turned around and stabbed me in the back during what was supposed to be one of the most critical times for us. I remember sitting in my car that night, just staring at my phone, trying to process what I'd seen. I wanted to confront her right there, but I also didn't want her to get ahead of me. I needed to think, to plan. But inside, I was already boiling with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. The woman I thought I knew was out there, lying and cheating, all while we were supposed to be working on saving our marriage. It felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling, and I had no idea what was coming next. The next morning, I knew I couldn't just let this go. I had to confront Lisa, but I also wanted to be smart about it. I didn't want her to spin some bullshit story, so I decided to gather as much evidence as I could before saying anything. I started by going through her phone, something I never did before, but I figured I needed to know exactly what she was hiding. It was a mess. There were texts from Tom, flirty and suggestive, some explicit. I saw messages where she was calling him my secret, and he was responding with the same kind of heat. They'd even arranged to meet up again, I found out later after the retreat ended. I was enraged, but mostly just heartbroken. How could she do this to me? What did I do wrong? I kept asking myself those questions over and over, but deep down I knew it wasn't about me. It was about her choosing to cheat, choosing to betray what we had. I felt like a fool for trusting her, for believing in our marriage. I had loved her with everything I had, and now I was staring at proof that she'd been screwing around with some guy behind my back. I decided I'd wait until she came home to talk to her. I wanted her to come clean face to face, not over text or in some moment of panic. When she finally walked through the door that evening, she looked annoyed, like she was surprised I was still awake. I immediately asked her where she'd been that afternoon, why she'd been acting so secretive during the retreat. She shrugged, rolled her eyes, and tossed her purse on the couch. "Oh, you're really gonna throw that at me? Now after everything," she said, her tone bitchy dismissive. "I was tired, okay? I needed a break. What's your problem?" I took a breath, trying to stay calm, but inside I was boiling. "I know about Tom," I said flatly. Her face froze for a second, then she scoffed. "Tom? Who's Tom? You're imagining things. You always jump to conclusions," she lied, but I saw the flicker of guilt in her eyes. She was bad at hiding it. She tried to pretend she didn't know what I was talking about, but I wasn't buying it. I pulled out the phone with all the messages and the photos, and I saw her face turn pale for a second before she snapped. "That's not what it looks like," she spat. "You're crazy or maybe just jealous. It's nothing, just some stupid photos. You're overreacting." "Overreacting? Are you serious?" I cut her off. "You're cheating on me, Lisa, during a relationship retreat designed to save us. How stupid do you think I am?" Her eyes narrowed. "You don't know what you're talking about. Stop being paranoid. Maybe I was just comforting him, or maybe you're making it into a bigger deal than it is. You always do that, blow everything out of proportion." That was when I realized she was completely lying. Her tone was defensive, her words filled with blame shifting. I felt a surge of rage, but I kept my voice steady. I told her I was done with her lies, that I knew the truth. I told her I'd seen enough, and I wanted her to tell me the real story straight. She sneered, tried to deny it some more, but I wasn't falling for her bullshit anymore. I told her I wanted her out of the house, that I needed some time to think. That was the moment I knew things had crossed a line. This wasn't just a fling, it was an outright betrayal. The aftermath hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't sleep that night, replaying everything over and over in my mind. I felt shocked, then angry, then just numb. How could she have done this? How could she lie to my face, act like nothing was wrong? I felt like I had been hit by all the betrayal in the world. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, had been having sex with another man behind my back during the very retreat meant to fix us. That thought haunted me, and I kept thinking about the moments I missed, the signals I ignored, and how blindsided I'd been. Now I was stuck in this nightmare, trying to figure out what my next move would be. Do I fight for her? Do I kick her out and cut her out of my life? I didn't have an answer that night, only a deep, aching hurt that refused to go away. All I knew was I'd never see her the same way again. The days that followed were a blur of anger, confusion, and a strange kind of numbness. I stayed up late, scrolling through all the messages, the pictures, trying to piece together just how long she'd been lying to me. Every time I saw her smug face or heard her dismissive tone, it made me want to scream. I couldn't shake the feeling that she had deliberately sabotaged everything we'd built. She'd come into that retreat pretending to want to fix us, and meanwhile, she was out screwing around with Tom behind my back. That realization was like a punch to the stomach every time I thought about it. The real kicker was how she acted after I confronted her. Instead of breaking down or showing remorse, she doubled down on her lies. She kept saying, "It's just sex," like that somehow made it okay. She told me I was overreacting, that I was insecure, that I was making a mountain out of a molehill. She even threw in some classic "you don't understand me" line, like she was the victim. I couldn't believe how bitchy she was being, how she kept trying to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy for feeling betrayed. Honestly, I wanted to strangle her, but I also knew that wouldn't solve anything. I started to think about how I could get revenge. Not in some petty way, but something that would hit her where it hurt. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling, completely betrayed, humiliated, and stupid for trusting her. I decided I'd dig deeper into her phone, find out exactly how far this thing went, and then make sure she paid for it somehow. I wasn't planning on just kicking her out and moving on. I wanted her to understand she'd lost everything. I knew I wasn't going to just accept this and pretend it was all okay. No way. This was going to be her wake-up call. One night I stayed up late, sneaking around her phone while she was asleep. I'd never done anything like this before, but I felt like I had no choice. I couldn't just trust her words anymore. I had to see what she was hiding, what she was saying to Tom behind my back. When I finally unlocked her phone, I saw more than I expected. There were texts, flirty, explicit ones showing they'd been planning to meet up again after the retreat. I saw photos of her and Tom together, kissing, touching, all that disgusting stuff. But what really set me off was the conversation she had with her friends, bragging about how hot Tom was, how excited she was to see him again, and how she told him she was done with her husband. That was the moment I realized I'd been played for a fool. I felt a mix of rage and despair. I wanted to scream, to break something, but instead I just clenched my fists and kept reading. I needed every detail, every lie, every betrayal to be clear in my mind so I could confront her properly. When I finally closed her phone, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach all over again. This wasn't just a fling. She was actively sneaking around behind my back, lying, playing me for an idiot. How could she have been so cold, so manipulative? That night, I lay awake for hours trying to process everything. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. How do you come back from something this bad? How do you even look at someone you once loved with the same eyes? I kept asking myself all those questions, but I knew deep down that my trust was completely shattered. The woman I thought I knew was a lie. She was a cheat, a liar, and a master manipulator. And somehow I had to figure out what to do next. Do I stay and fight? Do I walk away and pretend I never knew? Whatever the decision, I knew one thing. She'd made her choice, and I wasn't going to be a part of it anymore. The confrontation finally happened. A couple of days later, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Every time I looked at her, I felt this boiling rage building inside me. I knew I had to face her face to face, get everything out, and see what she'd say. I told her to come into the living room, and when she did, she looked annoyed and defensive. She crossed her arms, rolled her eyes, and started with the usual bullshit, trying to dismiss everything, insist she was just having fun, or that I was obsessed. That pissed me off even more. I wasn't about to listen to her spin some story about how she was just experimenting or some crap like that. I took a deep breath, pulled out the evidence, the photo, the messages, and laid it on the table between us. Her face changed instantly. She looked stunned, then angry. She started to deny everything, deny she'd done anything wrong, but I cut her off. I told her I had all the proof I needed, and I wasn't going to be lied to anymore. That's when she finally cracked. Her bitchy mask slipped for a second, revealing a flash of guilt. Then she snapped back into her usual defensiveness. The words she spat out were cold and cruel. She said she was bored, that I'd become boring and dull, and that Tom was exciting. She claimed I was too controlling and that she needed something more, something she wasn't getting from me anymore. She yelled that she didn't owe me anything, that she was just having sex, and that it didn't mean anything. And then she threw in the classic line, "Sex isn't everything," as if that somehow justified what she did. But I wasn't buying it. I felt like I'd been punched again and again. I told her she'd ruined everything, that I never thought she'd cheat, especially not during a retreat meant to save us. I told her she'd betrayed me in the worst way possible and that I didn't see any way back from this. I asked her how she could be so callous, so selfish, to screw around behind my back during a time when we were supposed to be healing. Her response: she shrugged and said, "Maybe I just needed some excitement. Maybe I'm not made for this boring marriage anymore." That broke something inside me. I realized she didn't care. About us, not really. She was just looking out for herself, feeding her own selfish needs. I'd always thought we were stronger than this, that we had something real. But she proved me wrong. She was more interested in some fleeting thrill than in the life we'd built together. At that moment, I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I told her to pack her stuff and leave, because I couldn't stomach her lying anymore, let alone having her in my house. As she stormed out, calling me paranoid, crazy, and possessive, I felt a strange relief mixed with heartbreak. Sadness because I loved her, but also a sharp clarity this was the end. I realized I'd been naive, trusting her blindly, and that she'd been using me like a plaything. I told myself I'd survive this. I'd rebuild somehow. But I knew the scars would stay. That kind of betrayal doesn't just fade away overnight. It leaves permanent marks on your heart and mind. And now I was left to pick up the pieces, wondering how I ever let someone like her get so close, only to be thrown aside like trash. I sat there for a long time just watching her walk out of my life, feeling empty but somehow also a little stronger. After everything, I knew I'd never be naive again, and that I'd have to learn how to trust myself more than anyone else. Because, in the end, I realized I was the only one who truly had my back. And that realization hurt, but it also gave me the power to move on. The days that followed were the hardest I've ever experienced. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train, and every little thing reminded me of what I'd lost. The house felt emptier than ever. I kept replaying the confrontation in my mind, her bitchy attitude, her cold lies, her selfish justifications. It was like I'd been living with a stranger all along. I never thought I'd be in a position where I'd have to start over, especially not after 8 years together. But here I was, trying to piece myself back together while she was out there, probably with Tom, probably laughing about how she'd fooled me. I also started thinking about what to do next. Should I try to save this mess? Should I fight for her and hope she changes? Or was it better to just cut ties and move on? Honestly, I wasn't sure. My pride was hurt, but deep down I knew I still loved her, or at least I loved the idea of us. The betrayal cut so deep, though, that I wasn't sure if I could ever look at her the same way again. Trust was shattered into tiny pieces, and I didn't see how we could glue it back together. Still, I didn't want to give up entirely. I wanted to see if there was any hope left, or if I should just walk away and let her go. I decided to reach out to a lawyer, just to see what my options were. I wasn't planning to divorce her yet, but I wanted to know what was at stake if I decided to go that route. The lawyer explained my rights, what I'd be entitled to, and the process for filing for separation or divorce if I chose to. Hearing it laid out like that made everything feel even more real. I realized I'd be okay, no matter what happened next, because I had a lot to offer, more than she ever appreciated. But I also knew I had to be prepared for the worst. Throughout this whole mess, I kept thinking about the warning signs I missed. The little things, her secretive phone habits, her mood swings, the way she started dressing differently. I was blind and I hated myself for that. But I also realized that I wasn't the one who failed here. She did. She lied, cheated, and played me like a fool. The worst part was knowing she'd probably do it again if given the chance. That's when the decision became clearer. I was done being naive. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay when it clearly was. There's this weird feeling now, part anger, part relief, part sadness. I'm angry because she took everything for granted. I'm relieved because I finally see her for what she really is, an unfaithful, selfish woman who didn't care about me or our marriage. And I'm sad because I lost someone I loved, someone I thought was my forever. The hardest thing is that I still miss the good times, the laughter, the plans we made. But I keep telling myself that no amount of good memories can justify what she did. You can't buy back trust once it's gone. I've started to focus on myself now. I'm going to therapy, trying to work through the pain and learn how to move forward. I want to rebuild my life, even if it's just one step at a time. And I keep reminding myself that I deserve someone who respects me, who values me, not someone who cheats and lies. This has been a complete wake-up call, and honestly, I think I needed it. I was blinded by love, sure, but now I see clearly. I realize that I am worth more than someone who would betray me like that. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'll get through this. Eventually. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's that no matter how much you love someone, you can't force them to be faithful or honest. If they choose to cheat and lie, it's their problem. Don't let it destroy you. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to fix. But you can survive. You can come out stronger. And sometimes, walking away is the best thing you can do to save yourself. My story isn't over yet, but I know one thing for sure. I'll never let anyone treat me like that again. Not if I can help it. It's been a few weeks since she left, and honestly, I feel like I'm just starting to breathe again. The house is quiet now, and for the first time in years, I'm not waking up to her bitchy comments or her constant dismissiveness. It's weird how silence can feel so heavy, but also kind of freeing. I've been focusing on myself, going back to the gym, reconnecting with friends, and trying to rebuild some sense of normalcy after what feels like a lifetime of betrayal. Looking back, I realize how blinded I was. I mean, I knew we had problems, but I never thought she'd go this far, cheating during a retreat meant to fix us, lying so blatantly to my face. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but I guess it's also a wake-up call. Love isn't enough if someone is willing to betray you over and over. Trust once broken doesn't really come back. It's a lesson I'll carry with me, one I hope no one else has to learn the hard way. I woe. Lie, there are days when I feel angry, days when I feel like a complete failure for trusting her so blindly. But mostly, I feel a strange sense of relief. I'm finally free from the toxicity that was poisoning my mind and heart. I've started to believe again that I deserve better, that someone who truly cares wouldn't treat me like she did. I've come to terms with the fact that she's gone, and now I'm learning to live without her. Honestly, I think I'll be okay. It hurts right now, but I know it gets better. I've learned that I need to trust my instincts more, and I need to be cautious about who I let into my life. Not everyone is worth the heartbreak, and sometimes you have to cut people out for your own sanity. This experience has made me more aware of my worth, and I won't settle for anything less than respect and loyalty from whoever I choose to trust in the future. I hope this story serves as a warning or even just a catharsis for someone else out there. If you're in a relationship and you feel like something's off, don't ignore that gut feeling. Don't dismiss the small signs because you're afraid of losing someone. Trust is everything, and once it's gone, it's almost impossible to get back. But the good news is you can survive. You can come out stronger. You can rebuild your life on your own terms. As for me, I'm taking it day by day. I'm finally ready to start over, to find happiness again, even if it's just in small moments for now. I know I'll find someone who deserves my trust someday. Someone who will treat me right and show me that love isn't about betrayal and lies. I've learned that lesson the hard way, but it's one I won't forget. And for now, that's enough.